Ricans and a Black girl. Today's Girl Talk is a sensitive topic. It is about domestic violence, and October was Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and we wanted to share or
shine some light on the topic. Today we have an amazing guest speaker, and she's going to share her experience and her journey with domestic violence. And we hope that you guys get a great takeaway from this topic.
Yes. Amen. Amen.
Okay,
and let's introduce ourselves. Who are you?
Of course, I am the Dope Widow.
And hey guys, I am the Love Guru.
And I'm Mimi, your lifestyle diva, and welcome to this episode. So like we said, we got a special guest, and we're going to bring her in now. Hey, Nelly.
Hey.
Hi, Rodriesha.
Hi, beautiful. We can hear you. Got to unmute.
I'm so sorry. How you guys doing?
Good. Welcome.
Good. You look beautiful.
Thank you. You too.
How's it going?
It's going good.
Good. We're so glad to have you on the show.
Yes.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, but with a sensitive topic, but we're glad that you're here to talk about it, because we know you have wealth of information and input to contribute to this topic.
Yeah, I'm sure our audience is going to leave with a wealth of knowledge based on this topic. We know that it's something difficult, but we appreciate you coming on and sharing your journey with us. So thank you.
Yes, you're so welcome. I'm excited about talking about this topic that is very so detrimental to our communities, especially amongst Black women. So this is very...
Yes. So I always start off the show with a question, but I just have like a little almost introduction about you, like, because you do so much in your community with like praise and worship for the kids praise fest. You do a lot of with reform for criminal reform, but so with this topic right here with domestic violence, what could you share with the audience about your story and how you came through? Because now you're like this beautiful light in the community, doing all these things to inspire women and do all that stuff. Let them know how you went from that dark side to now where you are now.
Well, first of all, I just want to start by telling your viewers, just because you did not stop the fight, it's time for you to end the fight. And that's something I speak about when it comes to domestic violence and being in that kind of situation myself. And like you said, Michelle, yes, I am an activist for women. I do work on criminal justice reform, making sure that folks' rights aren't violated on any type of level, whether that's a local level or a state level, to fight for injustices. But that fight came out of my own fight. With having dead-end relationships and knowing that those dead-end relationships have pushed me to a place to where it became very harmful for not only me, but also my children. And I guess I'll start by saying this. If you are a victim of domestic violence, it's not your fault. It is not your fault. And I found myself as a woman in my phases. First of all, not just being in a relationship of domestic violence, being raised in a household of domestic violence. My journey started there. And for many of you, you may be asking yourself, how did I get here? You're telling me how to get out of the situation, but I'm still trying to figure out, how did I get here? And when I look back at my story and seeing my mother being hung over a balcony by my father, who I so admired because he was a military man, who picked up a drinking habit. Never seen the side of my father growing up, but as the military caused more pressure and the PTSD and all the things that he struggled with, I started seeing him revert his actions onto my mother, who was a very committed person. We look at domestic violence, and sometimes we think we have notions that, it's because the woman is being a loudmouth or she's acting. She deserved to get her butt beat. No, I mean, we're talking about women who cook every day, clean every day, take care of the household, make sure everybody's mental is stable, and there's really no reason to be attacked, right? And this is more seen upon more, not just vulnerable women, but women with power. The thing about domestic violence, it does break down your power. And so being a Black woman, sometimes not just Black woman, but being a woman in general, we look at ourselves as a strong beacon, and men that have domestic violence problems, and now not even just men, but women.
Mhm.
You know, we have also women beating men, and we have women beating men, and men beating men. So we're in a different culture space that we have to realize. But getting back to what I'm saying is that you have to identify where it began. You know, for my journey, it was a generational curse for me. It was something that followed me, and I seen it. I believed in my mind at the age of probably 19, 20, but because I was in it, that I knew the signs, and it wasn't going to happen to me. You know, I said, oh, you know, he's a nice guy, and everybody says they see something, and then I'm like, you know what? Nothing's going to happen to me because I've been in domestic violence. I grew up in it.
So you knew the signs.
Yeah, so I'm on phase 2, and I'm thinking, okay, I just got popped in the mouth. How did this happen?
Right.
Why didn't I see this sign? I should have been an expert by experience, right? And so, you know, the main thing is that through this process, I always held on to my integrity. I always held on to my character, and I did not break down in front of a lot of people. But that also kept me in a longer relationship with an abuser.
Right.
You know, as women, we don't want to go to work and have people notice that we have something going on, you know, especially being in the faith-based community. You don't want to go to church and show off your husband or your man, and then next thing you know, they're like, why she didn't tell me? You know, because it's an embarrassment that you carry, because that it's embarrassing to you, not understanding that you are the victim, right? If you're a victim in any situation, you should not feel embarrassed about it. But that is the setup of trauma. That is the result of trauma. It could be embarrassment, shame, guilt, you know, and then we start lying and start covering up for our situations. And so I really just want to express how sensitive this topic is, but how vital it is. Vital it is, because we cannot be truly liberated until we start speaking upon it and then learn how to resist at that time, right? Because there's a lot of hopeless little girls. We're not talking about just my age. I mean, at the time I was in my mid 30s or late 20s and early 30s. But there's little young girls that are going through this, you know, and where do they seek help at? Not everybody gets out. Let's cover that. Not everybody gets out. Somebody may have a mother. I know a woman that I'm actually advocating for right now who's losing everything she has because her mother died to domestic violence. She was only 18 years old, and her mother is dead now. Now she's having to take care of herself. So, you know, like I said, it's very important that we identify these issues, and, you know, we'll go more into the clinical side and getting treatment and getting help and things of that nature. But I first want you to understand that you are not alone. You're not alone. And when I say that with all sincerity. And then I want you to know that you can end this fight. You can. It's about trust. It's about trusting your inner being, and to have sisters and people in your circle. You know, don't shut people out that are trying to help you. You know, they may not approach you the right way because they may not know how to approach you. But believe me, those are going to be the strong arms that are going to help you to your liberation. But I tell you this, after 2 or 3 times of wanting to leave over and over and over, I called my mother, and the only thing that she could tell me as a survivor herself is, you'll know when you're ready to leave. You know, have you ladies heard of situations where, or been in situations with friends that say, I'm gonna leave. I know when I'm gonna leave. And then, you know, after several times of seeing them keep going back, leaving in the hotel for the night, you know, going away for a week, coming back. And then you think, you know, what's up with this chick? Like, I might as well not even help her. We can't do that. We have no authority to do that. We can't exit our friendships, because guess what? Now their lives depend on us. Once we give them advice, their lives depend on us. And so even though we may not be able to handle the emotional trauma that they are bringing, and also can cause to your relationship as a friendship, you have to understand that they are in a vulnerable place and in a dark place. Abuse is very hidden. But now it's become even more open. Sometimes I see women and their eyes are black, and I tell them, get you last night? No. I say, you know what? You can't hide that from me.
Right.
Yeah.
So, we have to understand that at the end of the day, us victims, we need support. We need it.
What do you say to a woman who is in a situation like the situation we're speaking of right now, and you see the trauma there, you've been through it yourself, that she's in an abusive relationship, but you can't help anybody if they're not ready to get the help? How do you steer them to to the direction of the help?
So that's the thing. It's not about being ready, right?
Okay.
Because I think in anything in life, we always try to make ourselves prepared for all kind of things. We're never ready for death. We're never ready for a move. We're never ready to lose our job. We're never ready for a economical change. We're never ready. Our thought process says that we're ready. We will never be prepared for anything that is major. And so that's the first thing. We have to change our language and our thought process of helping people. It's not about ready. It's about being on guard and being on foot with that person. Yeah. It's about knowing that whenever they choose to make that decision to change their thought process of whatever it is that's holding them back or suppressing their liberation, that we're right there in their corner. Mm-hmm. That is when I finally left my situation, I knew I was done. I let him have the car. I let him have the wallet. I left. I didn't have a pair of underwear. My husband now gave me a pair of underwear. I didn't even know he was going to be my husband. But I left everything. He burnt up all my kids' clothes. You know what I'm saying? And at that time, I really didn't care. But the beautiful thing about it was when I picked up that phone call and I told my mother and I told my friends, I'm out, they were still there. You get what I'm saying? They weren't thinking about, is Rodriesha ready? What they were thinking about is, I'm going to be here for whenever she decides to come out.
Absolutely.
And sometimes we put a lot of pressure on people because we figure that our time is their time. And as you know, biblically, we have there in Ecclesiastics, not to go into the word, but it speaks about seasons. There's a season for everything, right? And so how do we measure one person's season? Mm-hmm. That's my question. Right. Even though it's important to make that move, because I believe that somebody should get out ASAP. Yes. But the of it is, most women revert back several times before they go anywhere. So we have to understand that us applying pressure can cause more harm when somebody's already living in a traumatic space. Because then they'll start looking at you and saying, okay, what's up with her? Why is she telling me to do this? She has her own issues. See, that's part of the shame exchange. We start talking about you and saying, well, didn't she just tell me last week she broke up with her boyfriend? Right. And with, and so it's that blame game.
I like that shame exchange. That's good. That's a good point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's that shame exchange. And so we don't never want to put ourselves as a helper. We never want to put ourselves in a situation where we can allow them to cast their shame on us. Right.
Yeah. Risha, let me ask you a question. So what do we do? I'm speaking from the outside, as if I have a friend that is going through domestic violence. How could you give me advice on how can I support them? What can I do to make them feel comfortable with me and allowing them to know that I am in their corner?
So the first thing I would say is definitely do your research. I truly believe as friends that we should be prepared for all avenues. Your parents used to always say, don't have a plan A, have a plan A, B, and C, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you're truly somebody's friend, you need to be thinking about, okay, what type of counseling may this person need when they come out of this? How would their home situation, for instance, if you know that this relationship is based off maybe financial gain, how is it going to look when she comes out? She may not have a house. She may not have a job. She may lose all the money she has because it may be tied up in that man. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. How do I create an action plan B and C? Is she going to stay over my house? Is she going to stay over her cousin's house? Just those simple things so that you know that when it hits and the transition hits, that you'll be fully prepared to better assist your friend, right? And then mainly is, letting them know that you are there. abuse, especially abuse happens at any time, but I will share this to you. Most of my I would say episodes or contact with abuse has happened in the morning, early in the morning, and late at night. Normally during the day, that's when people are working or they're out doing something. They don't really have time to be upset with each other unless something just didn't happen. But most of abuse occurs like in the morning, right when you wake up. It's like right in your face. They're yelling at you. They're doing something. You may not have given them sex or whatever it is.
Right.
And then, in the evening, you had a long day. Y'all had a long day. You may have said something that made them upset, or not even that. It's just, they may be a drug user. You get what I'm saying? And so I would say for friends, check on your friends early in the morning. Call them at night. Even if it's 6 o'clock in the morning, call and say, hey, listen, I want to pray for you this morning, just to break that. I've had friends that have broken me, have literally saved me from a beating that day by calling me and saying, hey, I want to pray for you this morning, right? Just stop that daily cycle of abuse during that time, right? Even in the evening, calling and then we still have to be sensitive, because jealousy plays with men in friendship, and also vice versa, the abuser and the friends. But just checking and saying, hey, how's he doing? Let him know you're on the phone. Hey, I'm on the phone. How y'all doing? And so there's little things that you can do to help a situation. It won't totally stop it, but it will help a situation. Right. Main thing in general, be there, be prepared. Okay. Be prepared. We have women now in our transitional house who finally have left their abusers, and they have nobody to help feed them, clothe them, nothing on their back, nobody to help. We think about just that woman. What about women with children? They don't know where to put their children at. The children now has to go back to the father, who's the abuser. If you are not truly ready to support your friend when they come out of this transition, there's no reason why you should even speak up about them leaving that relationship. Because like I said, sometimes they may leave and their children don't have a place to go. Are you going to be the one to help take care of their children if they leave? Are you going to allow those children to go back to the father? What is your position as a friend when they transition out? It's not about just during the process. It's about when they come out. Because guess what? Most of them are going to come out.
Yeah. Wow. Mm-hmm. So I have a question. What do you think, based on your own experience and based on the experiences of the women that you work with, what's the core reason that keeps a woman? Is it fear? Is it that they don't feel that they're worthy enough? Like, what's the real reason? What's the consensus as to why women stay in such abusive relationship? Is it normal to them?
Well, there's no actual true reason. I'm not a licensed professional counselor, but I do advocate, and I only speak of my own experience. There are many factors. Like I said, there is generational factors. Mental illness. During my time, I went through found out that I had hyperthyroidism and was dealing with my own bipolarness and so on. And so going through mental illness and dealing with somebody who was mentally ill was a deep challenge. And you ask yourself, how do you get out of situations when both of you guys are mentally ill? And then, you look at vulnerability, you look at fear. A lot of strong women aren't fearful so much of retaliating. You see these movies where it's like, don't sleep with your eye open because I'm gonna get you.
Right.
Strong women, we're gonna get you now. Our fear is attachment. Our fear is losing the things that we have with each other that we've built. If you built over 7-8 years, are you telling me to walk out of my home that I've been helping to pay for 8 years? I mean, I know this dude is beating on me, but I'm not going to just walk away from my home. We have dogs. We share bills together. And then there's some other notions that, I know this person. I know it makes them tick. I know it doesn't make this person tick. If I go into another relationship, I'm just starting all over. Do I want to deal with somebody else's issues when I can deal with somebody I already know?
Yeah.
It's so true.
Yeah.
So the familiar, so the being familiar with the relationship and
Yeah.
knowing what even if it's crappy and all messed up, you know this crap. So
That's
you
right.
willing to stay. Yeah.
And
That's
being comfortable. And you know, Michelle, this is the thing. Normal, healthy relations do the same thing
right. Right.
without abuse. Now, it could be that the husband's a gambler, and you're like, you know what? I don't want to leave the situation. Everything is still good. He may have a gambling problem, but we still have a lot of attachments. It's the same thing in being in an abusive relationship. And so there's many reasons that may keep a woman keep a woman staying. But that person is going to have to dig deep in themselves and identify what is that keeps you staying. You know, my thing of keeping me staying was that I was an enabler. Okay. I thought that I could help people, and I do it every day, but I thought I could help my mate. I thought I could help him through through incarceration. I thought I could help him through his bipolarism. You know, I thought I could help him because his mother was always saying he was a piece of crap. You know, I can make him feel good. I was the enabler, stopping him from growing and getting the help that he needed because he confided in me about everything.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's not always a situation where I'm just dumbfounded, right? It's just, I want to help. I want to be here. I said I was going to love this guy forever, and I made that promise. Some people want to stick to commitments because they've been broken by commitments. You know, expectations are meant to be broken. You have people that their parents have walked out on them, foster care children, who really believe in their heart that they don't want to harm or hurt or leave anybody else. You know, we see the story of, when we think about abuse, everybody thinks of Tina Turner.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, when Ike says, "Oh, Anna Mae, you gonna leave me?" and Tina says, "No, I told you I would never leave you."
Right.
That is so true, because we have to realize we think that we are breaking a broken cycle in this person's life, but we don't understand that we're actually harming ourselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, you see these things going around you like all the time. Like we've had shows where we talked about, especially in Black and brown communities, how the families, the father has a whole family across town, and you know, and the wife knows that he has this, but she's like, you know what, I don't want to leave because I don't want to divorce. I want to, you know, I want to keep my family together. But the family is actually not together because he has a whole nother family over here. You just don't want to. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so that's a good point. I've been there, done that too. I've had women come to my doors and had to give them boxes of Pampers for their newborns. I mean, you know, that are my children. You know, just had the baby, pregnant myself, being 4 months pregnant. Another woman come to my door who's just delivered a baby. You know, I've been there. But see, this is the thing about living a double life. When people live a double life, their family, their total family with you, right? And their total family with them. Even though we know that they're living on other situations, they're giving us what we need during that time. I don't know if you guys look at sister wives and stuff. That's how sister wives live. You know, sister wives live is, as long as you give me this increment of time and them equal amount of time, then we all get along. It's the same thing with knowing that your mate has stepped outside the relationship, because number one, you don't really accept in your mind that this person is cheating on you, but you do accept the fact that if you don't allow that person to be with another person, all he's going to do is go home and come home and beat you. So which one is it? You know, which one would you rather do? So what you do is you appreciate the time that you do have together and say, you know what? Well, at least he's home, you know, 15 hours a day with me. So she can't be really getting a good deal anyway. She's on the shortest end of the stick. That's that psychological and mental abuse.
It's so funny you say that, because you hear that so much. Well, she can't be getting that much because he's with me. He's with me most of the time. Right. Go ahead, Jackie.
No, we try to justify his doing by making ourselves feel better. Like, you know, exactly what you said. You know, he's with me Monday through Friday. He's only spending Saturday and Sunday with her. So, you know, there can't be that much going on over there. So yeah, we make justifications for their actions.
So I think it's extremely
Patience.
It's so important that once you come out of this relationship to just seek some type of counseling, because you have to reverse all of that. Your way of
Yes.
thinking, the psychological part, like everything has to just reverse in order for you to have a sustainable life. You
That's
know?
right.
Yeah.
And
And
you
that
know,
was like, I'm sorry, Rodriesha.
no, you're fine. Just Giselle, I wanna talk about this too, just leading off what you're saying, is that most women, don't be let down, sisters, I say. Most women that get out of domestic violence relationships get in another relationship right away.
Yes. Yes.
And we never really sometimes find the time to holistically heal, because we found ourselves bound up in another relationship because we're used to that space. I was one of those people. I found I was in another relationship, but thank God it ended up being my husband. But later on down the road, I started realizing that I did need that window of space. I needed that window of space to transition, to find out who I was outside of the relationship. And so I did not seek counseling into years after I left the relationship, because some of the actions that I was carrying or I've acted out in my relationship, I started acting in my new relationship. And then
I was going to ask you, did any of that spill over into your new relationship?
It did spill over. But I thank God for maturity, because sometimes we mature in a certain span. Things I'm doing at 35, I wouldn't do at 33. And so as I matured, I started really identifying, like, what did I need to do to reverse that that transition that I did so quickly, mentally, not physically, because we cannot go back and reverse the time that we should have took counseling or whatever. But we can mentally go back in our mind and say, okay, this is the step that I skipped, but how can I redeem myself to catch up to what's going on? And so I tell people, yes, you need counseling. One thing I truly believe in, especially for minorities, see a minority counselor. I say that to the deepest part of my heart. It's okay to have a counselor outside of your culture, but the culture differences in the weight that we carry is very important for somebody to be understanding of that aspect, because otherwise you're just getting a clinical assessment, clinical treatment, or whatever. It's important to be able to identify with somebody that is like yourself, culturally. And then I would say, do not exit out holistic counseling. Holistic counseling is so important. I went through holistic counseling, and I was able to, number one, change my eating habits, which changed a lot of my thought process. I went gluten-free for almost about 3 years when I went through my counseling sessions. Red dye and stuff was affecting my thought process, having ADHD and so on. There's some things that you can actually take as far as nutrition wise, and having like a healthy exercise balance and stuff that will help those, endorphins and just help you have a better, more open mind, right?
That's what I was going to say when you were saying that exercise actually allows you to release,
Yes.
stress and all that kind of stuff that you have built up that can make you think, your thought process be more
Yeah.
clear. Yeah.
Yes, it can. And, to have somebody that I can identify with was very, very important. So I tell a lot of women, if you are not fond of the traditional counseling, because remember, we're carrying the shame and we're carrying the guilt, and we don't want people to, number one, think about this. We don't want to go in a counseling session with children and somebody knows I'm being abused, and then somebody takes my children.
Yes.
There's safety measures. And so when it comes to safety measures, you want to be able to reach out to your church, your pastors, your counselors, those kind of people that that your business is sacred.
Yes.
Because by state law, if there's some abuse going on or something that happens, these counselors are supposed to report that. And so that's why I say, make sure that you speak to somebody that is culturally equivalent to, who you are.
Interesting. Okay.
That's a good point of view.
That is a very good point.
It's funny you say speak to a counselor or a therapist or anybody that's culture, like close to your culture, that is like you.
Right.
I had a therapist, and she was the same culture as I was, and when I initially went in, I felt like a great connection towards her.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think I found, you know, because I had gone through a process of seeking out several therapists and I just could not find that connection. And then I met this woman and she was Hispanic as I am. And I felt that connection, especially because she knew of our culture and she knew certain things that I would talk about. She could relate because she was Hispanic. It was really great. And then we get to a point, like after a couple of months, and I just felt like she was more gossipy than giving me more advice.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just like a disappointment because I had found this connection and I was like, wow, I definitely found the person that I think that I can trust with all, you know, everything that's been going on. And then I just felt disappointed.
Yes. And that will disappoint you. And you know, when we look at pinpointing a counselor, we have to understand that we're sharing all of our business.
Mm-hmm.
And when we share all of our business, sometimes we become vulnerable to that person to where we feel like it becomes more of a relationship building than a counseling experience. You get get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so we start to confide in these people and feel these feelings like, oh, I'm relieved because I got to talk to somebody, not understanding that we have to keep it within its boundaries. You get what I'm saying? Because that's why you have different aspects of support. You know, if you really want to go deep into crying and doing some extra stuff, call your girlfriend that knows best. You know what I'm saying? If you just need to get your mental straight and you want to go see your counselor, bim boom, call them. There should be no reason why you're calling your counselor outside of any extra besides your sessions, right?
Exactly.
And so sometimes it can get very entangled when you start to rely on your counselor as being your only savior, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I went through a hard transition when my spiritual mother died, Cheryl Wilson. When she died, it was very deep for me because I was she was the only one that knew I was in an abusive relationship. Wow. And she prayed me through that. And so when I lost her, I was like, dang, because she was actually my spiritual mother who held me accountable to everything that I did. So when I lost her, my abusive relationship got worse because I didn't have anybody to share my deepest thoughts with. Mm-hmm. You know, my counselors who I spoke with, I just gave them what I felt I should give them. Yeah. You know what I mean? So we have to be careful to know that, number one, domestic violence is a sensitive topic. And we're women, we're hormonal. You know, if somebody's talking to you, unfortunately, we expect them to hold themselves with integrity in a professional setting, but some people don't. Some people don't even know how to really deal with it. Have you heard the saying that counselors need counselors?
Yes.
That's what I was going to say. Sometimes just because they're a counselor, their character still is flawed. You know, and that was a good point that you made. The counselor is not somebody who you go to like a girlfriend or a spiritual person, and you think that they're going to connect with you on that level. They're just there to give you the tools to use to mentally be able to navigate through whatever you're going through.
It's funny because I thought she was that person because when we initially started our sessions, they started all very professional and I felt good. When I say connection, not connected as a girlfriend, but connected as like I found someone that I can talk to as a professional. But then eventually she became very gossipy. Like her advice wasn't professional advice. She was speaking to me as if I was her girlfriend. And when I felt that, then I felt like I needed to cut it off. So I just told her that, you know, I would not be returning again. But I just felt disappointed because I thought that she was a professional and she would remain that way, and it just didn't happen that way.
Well, you know, and you brought up a good point, and I'm glad that you listened to and saw that trigger of the transition. You understand what I'm saying? Not everybody picks up on that. And so that just brings up a big point. Regardless of who we speak to, we have to be careful and be aware of what's happening during our time. You know what I'm saying? Because we don't know what that person is going through in their own personal life. It brought up some thoughts of their past abuse, because most people that are counselors have been through a lot of stuff. You know, we just don't know. We don't know how they admired you, and their thoughts may have changed. And so I just appreciate the fact that you were able to step out of another situation that was getting ready to be more mentally abusive than something that you, because now you've opened up your heart and your trust to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And careful when we open up our heart and our trust to people that we figure that are licensed or professionals, whatever that may mean, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I was thinking, do you in order to break the cycle, I know you mentioned that you went to therapy years later after meeting your husband. Um, do you think that a woman who's abused and when they start beginning when they begin a new relationship, that they should be transparent with their new partner and maybe both go to counseling, because your defenses, your guards are up, and so the abuser, the abused can become the abuser easily, because you're being a little bit defensive, so that that new person, the person, and not just a boyfriend, but someone that you intend to marry, right? Someone
yes.
you intend to be with, so that they learn, I guess, your triggers. So yeah, for lack of a better word, your triggers, so that you guys can sort of work together to diffuse situations, so things that don't escalate to a whole nother level.
Yes, that is a great point. I believe that you should definitely co-counsel and see people, you know, see a counselor together. But I recommended that, honestly, you do it together in the same time span. But I recommend counseling separate from each other.
Definitely.
Separate from each
Definitely.
other. And then whenever it comes to the point where you feel like you need a joint counseling session together, that's great. Some of the things that I went through with my husband was that he was leaving a marriage. He was getting ready to be divorced. And then I was leaving a domestic violence situation. But we didn't understand the effects that what was having on our children. And so when we got together, you know, we were all in love, happy, everything was going good, but our kids were broken. Because we have to remember, my last relationship, I had 3 other children from his children. So they call me mom. And then my husband had his own children from their mother and their relationships that called him, you know, dad. And so now we're all sitting at the table and I'm trying to figure out how to be in my other children's life and my ex relationship, and how to carry on a new family with my new stepchildren who just left a traumatic situation, right? Wow. And so, you know, one day we were sitting at the table all eating and stuff, and all of us just start crying, you know, and we don't know what's going on. But I thank God for my husband's strength, being that he, you know, he's an expert in counseling and family, and to realize that I couldn't ignore that. I had to go back and be counseled about that. You know, how do we begin to, number one, create a plan between you and I, the new mates, the new partners, that is going to be a holistic healing for the whole family, because it's not just you. Now you have little babies that you picked on in your new relationship, and then you have you know, your older babies that look on the outside saying, hey, I don't know what happened with my dad and my stepmom, but I still love her. I don't know what happened to my stepdad, but I still love him. And so we began to create boundaries and say, okay, this is how we're going to communicate with the kids that are outside of our relationship, right? But that counseling piece was major, was to figure out how to navigate and transition in a new way of living. Yes. And without having to be in connection with my abuser, but still be connected with the children. Yeah. You know, I had a situation where I was still going to pick up my stepkids and taking them places, letting them know I still love them, so on and so on. And then their dad calls me, is like, stay away from my kids. You know, I don't want my kids around your new mate, you know. And that really crushed me, because I had been in their lives for 8 years, you know. And I'm like, how do you expect me to do that, you know? And so I had to like sever the relationship for maybe a couple years until they got old enough to find me. And then they became teenagers, and the next, you know, they start texting me and finding me on Facebook, and it's like, hey mom, and you know, we haven't heard from you. And that was a deep trauma. That put a lot of hatred in me. It really did, because it's one thing to leave a relationship, but to break a bond between a relationship with you and children was very harmful for me and hurtful. And so I had counselors, like I said, that was able to, you know, really look into how I felt about it. And now, thank God, we have great relationships. I have all my children over, all my stepkids and all his stepkids. And I, you know, sometimes my house, I have 10 kids in my house, you know, but this is 8 years later. And I think about, like, had I had counseling in the beginning, this may have happened sooner, but I didn't know how to handle the situation and still be open to love at the same time.
That's funny you bring it up with the children, because I never thought about it from the perspective of children. Like when you leave relationships and you've been with somebody for a long time and you build bonds with their family, like you're close with their mom or their sisters and stuff, and it's like now you have to have a disconnect from them because you're not with that person anymore. But now if children were involved, it's like, wow, now I have to disconnect from these children, and they don't even have the maturity to understand what the hell is going on here.
Yeah. That's right. And you know, my children's father, you know, I love his mother. I was crazy about her. I loved her to death, like my own mother. I mean, I just started like really chilling out on us, really talking, only because it's just time sort of split us apart. But you know, a lot of people ask me, why are you still talking to his mom? Do you still love him? Do you still want to be with him? And you know, we developed for, you know, 8 years, you know, and not only that, it was the only leeway that I had to keep my kids connected to their family. You know, I wasn't going to call him because he was my abuser. I wasn't going to talk to him all the time, but my children still need to be validated by their family, you know, and so that was the only way I could navigate through that, you know. And so I'm glad you brought up that point, Michelle, because these are the things that we go through when we're leaving a relationship, whether it's an abusive relationship or not. You have attachments. You know, my husband says it's easy to get in a relationship, but it's so damn hard to get on out of it. It is, because you have so many connections, you have so many acting parts, and it's just like a body. You know, if you've been in your body for 38 plus years and you cut off a pinky, believe me, you're gonna feel that. You're gonna feel it. And you're going to wonder what you got to do to replace that. You're going to have to learn how to live without that pinky functioning the way that it's functioning. And so how do you holistically repair that pinky to where you feel okay that your finger is missing? You know, I would say in this too, in leaving relationships and especially abusive relationships, there's a lot of loneliness. And it's not the loneliness from leaving that person. It's a loneliness of missing the lifestyle that you had, even if it wasn't a healthy lifestyle. You know, there's a lot of crying. There's a lot of, you know, it's just, it's dark and lonely. And I asked you today, who wants to be lonely? Right. You know, we tell people all the time, leave, leave, leave. Who wants to feel lonely? But it can be a very productive loneliness. Yeah. Very healthy loneliness. When you learn to, this is the exciting part I talk about domestic violence, when you become whole again and you learn yourself and you start traveling more than you travel, when you start realizing that you can wear some tight pants without them being down your throat, you can go to the store, you know, you can do what you want with your money, you know. You start getting liberated and saying, dang, why I didn't do this a long time ago? You know,
and I think sometimes, like for me, 'cause I'm a single woman, you could be alone and not lonely. So it's nothing wrong with being alone sometimes and taking that time to just, you know, be with yourself and enjoy yourself, shop by yourself, enjoy those tight pants, like you said, take those trips with your girlfriends and all that kind of stuff. But I definitely think you could be alone and not lonely.
Yes, you can, you know, and being alone is the action word, you know, it's all in the thought process. And like I said, anybody that leaves a relationship that's not healthy, or not even a healthy relationship, you're going to feel lonely. You will, only because of the detachment and the, you know, the consistency of the lifestyle of being amongst each other. But once you learn, like you said, how to be alone and not be, You don't have any issues. There's so many women I know with my mother. She remarried once after her domestic violence, but she stayed alone a very long time. You know, she didn't allow men to come around us, and, you know, she didn't open herself for that type of vulnerability. Now she's older, and I wish as a child of domestic violence that she was settled down and that she had a good mate that loved her. But the truth of the matter is she experienced so much trauma in her life that she didn't want to repeat that cycle, and she decided to just be alone. You know, I don't know if she'll be alone for the rest of her life, but that's okay too. Some women decide to never be in a relationship again,
Right.
and that's okay too. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's funny how we want somebody to get out of a relationship, and then when they're out of a relationship for a while, then we start putting time limits on when they should be back in a relationship.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm. Very
You
true.
start saying, you've been by yourself for about 2 years now. You need to be back, and you start telling them how good it is to be back in a relationship.
Mhm.
Who says they want to be back in a relationship? I learned that from myself.
People put so much power, or what I should say, prestige, in being in a relationship. Like if you're not not in a relationship, you looked at like, oh, what's wrong with you? Or you're not married, like what's wrong with you? You know, it's okay to be alone.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I look at my mother. She was alone. She was okay with being alone, you know? And that's one thing that I learned from her. And so, like you said, I love to see a woman's strength when it comes to learning herself, and when it comes to her stepping out on new adventures and endeavors that she's never seen or even thought of. It's a beautiful thing at the end of the day when you turn around and see all the trauma you went through, all the hurt and pain you went through, but you made it. You ended the fight. You walked out of the situation. You ended the fight. And not only did you end the fight with yourself, you ended the fight for your generation, for the generation underneath you. You ended the fight for your children. When you got out that situation, and the look on your children's face when they're so proud of you, that they were tired of seeing you go through this mental stress, tired of seeing you go through this abuse, and they look at you and they say, Mommy, I love you. No matter what, I'm always here for you. That is just one of the best things that you can ever experience, to look in a child's eyes, to know that you are their safe haven and you created that space for them. And no matter if you're with their father or you're with their mother or whatever it is, that they have total trust in your judgment. It's so important.
Right.
It definitely is. Having your children by your side is one of the biggest gifts when you come out of a situation like that. I definitely agree to that.
Rodriesha, you
They're
think?
looking at us as an example, as a beacon, as a light, and so we need to be able to shine. And go ahead, Gigi. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I wanted to know, do you think that, including yourself, that women who are who have experienced domestic violence, do you think that they need to hear? We've spoken before about forgiveness and just having to have someone apologize. Do you feel that, including yourself, that women who've been abused, need to hear the abuser say, I'm sorry, in order for you to finally close that chapter? Is that something that lingers on in your thought process?
Absolutely not.
Good.
I truly believe that we look for that validation of hearing them say, I'm sorry.
Good.
You know, natural feeling that when you hurt somebody, they're supposed to say, I'm sorry. But at the same time, you could look for that validation for years and years to come that keeps you entangled with that person and never and go back into a situation because you had a false sorry. You understand what I'm saying? I've been there. I've been looking for sorries all over the place, not just in my abusive relationship. I've been looking for sorries from my son's father, who never gave the flip to care about even raising him. I've been looking for sorries from my dad. I've been looking for sorries from a lot of folks, and they went to their grave not saying that they're sorry. But that's not what validates you. And I want to share that with every woman. That is a feeling. That is an emotion. We cannot continue to live our lives by emotion. That is is the outcome of trauma, is to say, you know, this person really feels bad about what they did. It's not about feeling bad. It's not about what they did. You have to totally let go. That is probably one of the last phases, Giselle, and I'm glad you brought it up. That's probably one of the last phases of your release, to not expect anything else coming from that person.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Once you break their voice in your head, once you break the expectations, you start to become totally free, because you're not looking for anything else from them. Nothing else.
Oh, so beautiful and so freeing. Just to be able to know you're going to start life all over again. You're going to be okay. To begin to love yourself again. To fall in love with who you are, because they definitely chip away from our self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and they take away our power. To regain that power must be so beautiful. I had to cut that.
That was such a good point. I love that we're at almost at a close on that point, that you cannot wait for anybody to validate you.
No, you can't.
Say sorry, because
Right.
you could be waiting forever, because
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to get sorry from everybody. You have to be able to still go on with your life, be a productive person, be a productive person to your children, to everybody else around you, your community, and yourself. Because sorry is not going to come from everybody. You'll be waiting for sorry and for forever.
Mm-hmm.
So we've talked about this before, about
Yeah.
closure.
Closure.
We all need closure.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I don't need closure.
Right.
You know, once I sever that tie with that person, that's it. And now the process begins where I need to begin to heal. You know, just because I need closure, that doesn't mean that that person is going to come and tell me, you know what, I'm sorry for all the strife that I've caused in your life, for all the toxic, you know, that I've contributed into your life. You know, we're not always going to get that. Like Rodriesha said, you know, we don't need anyone to validate us. We validate our own self.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yes. And we have to remember that that person may not be in the space to where they're able to really even notice how toxic they are.
Yeah.
And you can't expect for somebody to say sorry about something, a space that's not even in. So, you know, one thing I will say, you know, before we do close, if you have any more questions for me before we do close, you want to close as many entrance doors as you can when it comes to leaving an abusive relationship. So if that person may come around and say that they're sorry, that's like 90% out of 100%. You know, they will try to bring you flowers. They will get in contact with your family. They will bring you gifts. They will come pick up the kids from school. You know, they will show up as this newfound person, but you have to be ready and recognize the signs that will trigger you to go back, right? And so that's why I say there's no need to look for sorries, because if you're truly ready to leave, you're not going to need to look for anything, because there's nothing that that person can do that could validate you. There's no closure that you could get that would allow you back into that situation. And so it's very important to understand that even though you feel powerful that you left this relationship, I got it, you're still vulnerable. You're still very vulnerable. It's like an open wound. You know, if you hurt yourself, right, and you decide to put ointment on it and whatever, it still have to heal on the inside. Even though the surface looks strong and ready, after a couple of days, you may still feel the bruise or the sore on the inside. It's the same thing with going through abuse and trauma. It's not ready until it's all the way healed through.
Jesus.
Right.
Great analogy.
I just want to leave that to you.
Yeah.
They will come after you and back for you, because most likely you're a good person.
Yeah. That was beautiful. So, Rodriesha, please do us a favor and tell everybody where they can follow you. If you have any information that you want to leave with regards to assistance or anything like that, whatever you want to share at the end. And I don't know if you shared your full name in the beginning, so tell the people who you are.
So, and I'm Rodriesha Russuaw. I'm in Alabama. You can reach me. I'm the executive director of the Ordinary People Society, formerly known as TOPS, founded by Pastor Kenneth Glasgow. You can find us on our website, at www.wearetops.org. I have a program called Voices of the Violated Reproductive Justice, where I fight for women's rights. You can message me there. Also on Facebook and Instagram, where same thing, Voices of the Violated, or you can find me on Facebook under my name, Rodriesha Russuaw. And I'm here. Anything that you need to talk about, I'm here. And we have women that are prepared to share your journey with you in your liberation into a new life. So we're here for you.
Oh, awesome. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Thank you. Pleasure to be on the show.
Sharing and the courage to just, most people who abuse keep it to themselves. So it takes a courageous person to want to share in order to shed some light for another person to be able to survive. So just thank you for that courage and for sharing.
Yes, we appreciate it. Thank you. It was a pleasure having you on the show today.
Thank you, Miss Jackie.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Women strong.
That's
Stay
right.
strong.
Share your crown, girl.
Yeah.
Stay
And that's it for Two Puerto Ricans and a Black Girl. See you guys next time.